The alarm screamed through the command center of Velian Prime. Ambassador Tilrex watched the holographic display with 4 of his eyes while the other 2 scanned the evacuation reports. Another colony was gone. The third one in 2 months. 20 million Velian citizens simply erased from existence. The Krethix swarm had come without warning, as they always did. Their black ships moved like insects across space, consuming everything in their path. They were not living creatures. They were machines built long ago by a civilization that no longer existed. Now they simply existed to destroy and replicate, creating more of themselves from the wreckage of the worlds they conquered. Tilrex's communication device buzzed. It was High Commander Vexus from the Galactic Council. The hologram appeared, showing the crystalline form of the Council's military leader. "Ambassador, we have discussed your request for aid," Vexus said, his voice like breaking glass. "The Council has decided to offer refugee support. We will help evacuate Velian Prime and the remaining colonies." "Evacuation?" Tilrex felt his breathing tubes constrict. "You mean surrender? You want us to abandon our home?" "The Krethix cannot be defeated," Vexus replied. "In 300 standard years, no one has stopped them. 47 civilizations have tried. All have failed. The logical course is preservation of life, not territory." 47 civilizations tried and failed, Tilrex repeated slowly. "Did anyone try asking the species you keep locked away? The ones you fear too much to allow into civilized space?" The hologram flickered. Vexus was silent for a long moment. "You cannot be serious. The quarantine protocols exist for good reason." "Our people are dying," Tilrex said, his voice hardening. "We are facing extinction. If the civilized species of the galaxy cannot help us, then perhaps we need the uncivilized ones. If you contact them, you do so without Council approval," Vexus warned. "And if they respond, you will be responsible for whatever they bring to our galaxy." The hologram vanished. Tilrex stood alone in the command center, surrounded by displays showing the approaching Krethix fleet. He had perhaps 4 days before they reached Velian Prime. 4 days to decide the fate of his entire species. He accessed the Council's restricted archives, using his diplomatic codes. The security measures were impressive, but desperation made him creative. Layer after layer of encryption fell away until he found what he was looking for: the extreme hazard protocols. There were only 3 entries. 2 were for space-time anomalies that could destroy reality itself. The third was labeled simply, Sol System, Species Classification, Extreme Hazard. Tilrex opened the file and began to read. With each paragraph, his 4 hearts beat faster. The planet was called Earth, a Class 12 death world, one of the most hostile environments ever discovered. The gravity was crushing. The atmosphere was corrosive. The temperature swings were lethal. The planet had survived 6 separate extinction events, each one capable of wiping out all complex life. And somehow, impossibly, intelligent life had evolved there. The species called themselves humans. They had developed faster than light travel only 30 standard years ago. The Council had made first contact, learned what they were, and immediately quarantined the entire system. The reports explained why humans were predators. Their eyes faced forward, designed for hunting. Their bodies were dense with muscle, adapted for high gravity. Their bones could withstand impacts that would shatter most galactic species into pieces. They healed from wounds that would be fatal to others. They had survived by being tougher, meaner, and more adaptable than anything else on their nightmare planet. But it was not their biology that had frightened the Council. It was their history. The humans had fought among themselves for thousands of years, wars that killed millions, weapons that could destroy entire cities in seconds. They had nearly made themselves extinct multiple times, and yet they kept surviving, kept fighting, kept building deadlier tools of destruction. The Council had decided that such a species was too dangerous to allow into the galaxy. Better to keep them contained, to hope they destroyed themselves before they could spread. Tilrex read the final line of the report. Recommendation: maintain quarantine indefinitely. Under no circumstances should this species be given reason to expand beyond their system. They are survivors of the highest order, and survival is often achieved through violence. He closed the file and looked at the display showing the Krethix fleet, black ships numberless and merciless coming to end his civilization. The Council offered evacuation and eventual extinction. The humans offered, what, another threat? A cure worse than the disease? But Tilrex thought about his children, his mate, the billions of Velians who trusted him to protect them. He thought about their art, their music, their 1,000-year-old cities that would be ground to dust by the Krethiks. He thought about having to tell future generations that their homeworld was lost because he was too afraid to ask for help. From the only species that might be able to provide it, his decision was made. It took him 2 hours to construct the message. He kept it simple, translating it into the mathematical language that all spacefaring species understood. He included their location, the nature of the threat, and a simple request for aid. He did not beg. He did not plead. He simply stated the facts and sent it toward the small yellow star called Sol. Then he waited. For 2 days, there was no response. The Krethiks' fleet drew closer. The evacuation of Velian Prime began in earnest. Ships packed with refugees fled to the outer colonies, though everyone knew those would fall too eventually. On the 3rd day, a message arrived. It was audio only, translated into Velian language by the communication systems. The voice was flat, emotionless, but somehow carried a weight that made Tilrex's breathing tubes flutter. This is Admiral Bora Kang of the United Earth Defense Fleet. We have received your distress signal. We are coming. Hold on, that was all. No questions about payment, no demands for concessions, no political negotiations. Just a simple promise. We are coming. Tilrex immediately tried to reply to provide more information, but the human ship had already jumped back into faster-than-light travel. They were on their way. He stood in the command center and wondered what he had done. He had called for help from a species that scared the entire Galactic Council. He had invited Deathworlders into civilized space. He had potentially traded one extinction for another. But as he watched the Krethiks' fleet approaching his homeworld, as he saw the evacuation ship struggling to save even a fraction of his people, he knew he would make the same choice again. The humans were coming. For better or worse, the Deathworlders had answered the call. The sensors on Sanctuary Station began screaming warnings 3 hours before the human fleet arrived. Tilrex rushed to the observation deck along with dozens of other Velian officials and refugees. They pressed against the transparent walls, staring at the empty space where their instruments said something massive was about to appear. When the human fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel, the station's defensive systems nearly activated on their own. The artificial intelligence that controlled the weapons had been programmed to respond to threats, and every sensor it possessed was telling it that threats had just arrived. The human ships were nothing like the elegant vessels that civilized species used. Velian ships were smooth and curved, designed to move efficiently through space. The Council fleets were works of art, beautiful and functional. Even the Krethic ships had a certain terrible elegance to them. The human ships looked like they were built for war and nothing else. They were angular and brutal, covered in armor plating that seemed excessive. Weapons bristled from every surface. Point defense turrets rotated constantly, scanning for threats. The largest ship, the human flagship, was easily twice the size of any Velian vessel and looked like it could ram through a planet. "Are those all weapons?" a young Velian technician whispered, his voice shaking. Tilrex counted the visible weapon systems on just one of the smaller human ships. He stopped counting at 50. These people had come to help them, he reminded himself. These were the good ones. He hoped he was right. A communication request came through. Tilrex accepted it, and a hologram appeared in the center of the observation deck. It showed a human female in a dark uniform covered in symbols that Tilrex assumed indicated rank. Her hair was pulled back severely. Her eyes were forward-facing like all predators. When she spoke, her mouth revealed flat teeth in front and pointed ones in the corners. "This is Admiral Bora Kang of the United Earth Defense Fleet," she said. The translation software worked perfectly, but something about her tone made Tilrex's skin prickle. "We are prepared to render assistance. Request permission to dock a contact team." "Permission granted, Admiral," Tilrex replied, trying to keep his voice steady. "Docking Bay 7 is open for your shuttle." The human shuttle arrived 20 minutes later. It was small but heavily armored, and Tilrex noticed it had weapons too. Did humans put weapons on everything? Commander Hyunwoo Nam led the contact team off the shuttle. He was tall by human standards, which made him enormous compared to the Velians. His uniform was similar to the Admiral's, dark and practical. Behind him came 6 other humans, each one radiating a quiet confidence that Tilrex found both comforting and terrifying. Ambassador Tilrex? Hyunwoo extended his hand, palm open. The translator had provided information about human greeting customs. Tilrex reached out with one of his smaller manipulator appendages and grasped the human's hand. The human's grip was gentle, but Tilrex could feel the strength in it. This creature could crush his appendage without effort if it chose to. Instead, it shook carefully and released. "Thank you for coming," Tilrex said. "We were not certain anyone would answer." "You sent a distress call," Hyunwoo replied with a slight frown. "Why would we not answer?" The simple question carried weight. To the humans, apparently, responding to a call for help was just normal, expected, not something requiring political debate and careful consideration. The Galactic Council suggested evacuation, Tilrex explained as he led them toward the command center. They said the Krethiks cannot be defeated. One of the humans behind Hyunwoo made a sound. Tilrex turned and saw it was a female with a datapad. She was studying holographic displays of the Krethik ships with an expression that the translator software interpreted as contempt. "Commander, these are drones," the female said. Her uniform tag identified her as Gina Park, Tactical Officer. Basic attack patterns. No creativity. No adaptation beyond simple learning algorithms. "We fought more sophisticated opponents in the Kuiper Belt." "The Kuiper Belt?" Tilrex asked. "A region in our home system," Hyunwoo explained. "We had some disagreements with colonists there about 30 years ago. They had automated defense platforms. Very advanced ones. We learned how to deal with them." Tilrex felt his breathing tubes constrict again. These humans had fought wars against artificial intelligence in their own system. The thing that was ending the Velian Empire was something humans considered a solved problem. In the command center, the humans studied the tactical displays showing the Krethiks' fleet's approach. They asked questions about Velian defensive capabilities, ship strengths, weapon ranges. They took notes on their strange devices, and they showed no fear at all. 4,000 ships, Gina said, looking at the Krethiks' fleet. Standard drone formation, probably controlled by a central intelligence cluster. "We have 200 ships," Tilrex said quietly, "and most of those are civilian vessels converted for combat. Our military was never designed for this kind of warfare. 200 is enough." Admiral Bora's hologram appeared, joining the meeting from the flagship. "Commander Nam, I want your assessment." Hyunwoo studied the displays for another moment. "Straightforward engagement, Admiral. Their strength is numbers and persistence. Their weakness is predictability. Recommend we take position at Velian Prime itself and let them come to us. Use the planet's gravity well for tactical advantage. You want to fight them at our homeworld?" Tilrex felt panic rising. "If you lose, the planet will be destroyed." "We will not lose," Bora said simply. It was not boasting. It was not confidence. It was just a statement of fact, like saying water was wet. "How can you be certain?" Tilrex demanded. One of the other humans, a male with engineer marked on his uniform, spoke up. His name was Taewon Lee. "Ambassador, can I ask you something? What gravity does Velian Prime have?" 0.7 standard, Tilrex replied, confused by the change in subject. "Earth has 1.3 standard, Taewon said. "We grow up in almost twice your gravity. Our bones are denser, our muscles are stronger, our ships are built to withstand forces that would tear yours apart. And our atmosphere," another human added. She was introduced as Yuna Choi, medical officer. "It is highly corrosive. Oxygen is toxic to most species. We breathe it like air. Our planet has tried to kill us in every way possible," Hyunwoo said. "Predators, diseases, disasters, ice ages, and volcanic winters. Asteroid impacts. We survived all of it. These Krethiks are machines built for war. Humans were evolved for it." Tilrex looked at each of them. They were not trying to frighten him. They were simply explaining reality. To them, being from Earth meant being tougher, stronger, more resilient than species from gentler worlds. It was not pride. It was just fact. "The Council fears your species," Tilrex said quietly. "They keep you quarantined because they think you are too dangerous." "They are probably right," Bora's hologram said. "We are dangerous. But the question is, dangerous to who? We did not come here to conquer you, Ambassador. We came because you asked for help. On Earth we have a saying, you judge people not by their power but by how they choose to use it. We choose to use ours to protect those who cannot protect themselves," Hyunwoo added. "The Council can debate philosophy after we have saved your planet. Right now we have work to do." Over the next 2 days, Tilrex watched the humans transform Velian Prime's defenses. Engineer Taewon and his teams worked with an efficiency that seemed impossible. They upgraded weapon systems, reinforced shield generators, and installed new technologies that made the Velian military advisors gasp. The humans did not sleep much, Tilrex noticed. They worked in shifts, but even off-duty humans seemed to rest for only a few hours before returning to work. Their energy was boundless, and through it all they remained calm. They joked with each other. They ate their strange food. They treated the coming battle like it was just another day's work. The Krethix fleet was now 2 days away. Tilrex stood in the command center, watching the humans make their final preparations. He had invited them here. He had called the Deathworlders. Now he would see if he had saved his people or doomed them. Admiral Bora's voice came through the communication system, addressed to the entire fleet, human and Velian alike. The Krethix swarm has destroyed 47 civilizations. They will not destroy a 48th. All ships prepare for combat. Show them why Earth is quarantined. Show them what Deathworlders can do. Tilrex felt his 4 hearts beating rapidly. The battle was about to begin. Engineer Taewon Lee stood on the observation platform of Defense Station Gamma, one of Velian Prime's orbital defense structures. Behind him, 3 Velian technicians watched nervously as he examined the station's weapon systems. He had been quiet for almost 10 minutes, just looking at the equipment and making notes on his datapad. Finally, he laughed. The Velians looked at each other in confusion. Laughing was something they understood. But why would anyone laugh at their defensive weapons? "I am sorry," Taewon said, noticing their expressions. "It is just... You have been fighting the Krethix with these?" "Yes," one of the technicians said defensively. "These are military-grade plasma cannons. Top of the line. For peaceful species, yes," Taewon agreed. He pulled up a hologram of an Earth weapon system. "This is what we call a basic defensive platform. Notice the firing rate is 6 times faster than yours. The energy output is 12 times higher, and we have shielding that can absorb direct nuclear strikes." "Nuclear?" The Velian technician's skin changed colors, a sign of distress. "You use nuclear weapons in space combat?" "We use whatever works," Taewon said simply. "The Krethix will not care about treaties or conventions. They will try to kill you with everything they have. You must be willing to do the same, or you lose." Over the next 18 hours, Taewon's engineering teams gutted and rebuilt Velian Prime's defense network. They installed human weapons that the Velians learned violated several Galactic Council treaties on excessive force. When a Velian officer pointed this out, Taewon just shrugged. "The Council is not here," he said. "The Krethix are. Which matters more to you?" The officer had no answer to that. Meanwhile, Medical Officer Yuna Choi established field hospitals in 3 locations on Velian Prime. The Velian doctors who came to assist were shocked by what they saw. The medical equipment was brutal in its efficiency. Surgical tools that could cut through bone, drugs that would restart a stopped heart, machines that could keep a body alive even with massive trauma. "Your medical technology is very aggressive," one Velian doctor said, examining a surgical unit. "On Earth, we have many ways to die," Yuna explained patiently. "We developed medicine that can save people from terrible injuries. Crushed bones, severe burns, internal damage. On a death world, you learn to heal from things that would kill gentler species. But surely you cannot heal from everything," Yuna smiled, though the expression showed her teeth in a way that made the Velian doctor step back. "We can heal from more than you think. I once treated a soldier who fell from a 20-meter cliff. Both legs broken, 3 ribs cracked, internal bleeding. He was back on duty in 4 months. 4 months? The Velian doctor's voice was weak. "Such injuries would mean permanent disability for my species. That is the difference between a death world and a gentle world," Yuna said. "We had to become hard because our planet was hard. It is not something we chose. It is what we are." In orbit, pilot Sung-Ho Han took a group of Velian pilots on what he called a training exercise. The Velian fighters were good ships, fast and maneuverable by their standards. But when Sung-Ho demonstrated what human pilots considered normal evasive flying, 3 of the Velian pilots passed out from the acceleration forces. "We need to pull back," Sung-Ho's wingmate said over the radio. She was a pilot named Nari Song. "Their biology cannot handle these G-forces." Sung-Ho reduced his speed and let the Velian ships recover. When the pilots woke up, they were shaking. "You fly like that in combat?" one of them asked weakly. That was gentle flying, Nari said. In real combat, we push much harder. Our bodies can handle it. Yours cannot. That is why you should stay back and provide support fire during the battle. Let us handle the close-range fighting. The Valian pilots did not argue. They had seen what human flying looked like. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time, like watching a predator hunt. Captain Donghyun Seo spent his time with the Valian military command, sharing Earth's military history. He brought up records of human conflicts, thinking it would help them understand human tactical thinking. Instead, he just horrified them. The Second World War killed 70 million humans, Donghyun explained, showing casualty figures. The First World War killed 20 million. These were wars we fought against ourselves. Against yourselves? The Valian commander's skin went pale. Your own species? We were divided into nations back then, Donghyun said. Different groups with different ideas. We fought about those differences. Many times. And after losing so many, you continued to fight? Yes, Donghyun said simply. Because we believed in things worth fighting for. Freedom. Protection of our people. Justice. We learned that sometimes violence is the only answer to violence. The Krethiks understand only destruction, so we must speak their language. He showed them weapons that humans had built, missiles that could level cities, bombs that created artificial suns, biological weapons that could kill millions, chemical weapons that were banned by every nation on Earth, but still existed in sealed bunkers just in case. We invented ways to destroy ourselves completely, Donghyun said, but we chose not to use them. We chose to turn those technologies toward protecting ourselves instead. Every weapon we have was designed first to kill humans. Now we use them to protect everyone. The Valian officers were silent for a long time. Finally, one of them spoke. You are the most frightening species I have ever met, she said, and I am grateful you are on our side. We get that a lot, Donghyun replied with a slight smile. Tilrex observed all of this from the command center. He watched the humans work with an efficiency born from generations of conflict. They did not waste time. They did not second-guess themselves. They just did what needed to be done. That evening, he sat with Commander Hyunwoo Nam in the station's observation deck. They looked out at Valian Prime, beautiful and blue below them. In 24 hours, the Krethiks would arrive. In 24 hours, they would know if the humans could truly do what they claimed. Your people frighten mine, Tilrex said quietly. I know, Hyunwoo replied. We frighten most species. Earth made us this way. We did not choose to evolve on a death world. But we survived it, and that survival changed us. The Council says you are too dangerous to allow into the galaxy. The Council has never faced real danger, Hyunwoo said. They have lived in peace for so long that they have forgotten what it takes to protect that peace. Someone must remember. Someone must be willing to face the darkness so others can stay in the light. And humans choose to be that someone? Hyunwoo was quiet for a moment. We know what it is like to be afraid. We know what it is like to face extinction. Every human carries the memory of the times our species almost died. Ice ages, volcanic winters, plagues. We survived because we refused to give up. When you sent that distress signal, we heard our own ancestors in it. The cry for help, the desperate hope that someone will answer. He turned to look at Tilrex with those forward-facing predator eyes. We answered because we would want someone to answer if we called. That is what neighbors do. That is what decent beings do. The Council can debate about danger and treaties. We just know that people needed help and we could provide it. Tilrex felt something shift in his understanding. The humans were not just warriors. They were not just killers bred by a nightmare world. They were survivors who remembered what survival cost, and they refused to let others pay that price alone. Whatever happens tomorrow, Tilrex said, I want you to know that the Valian people are grateful. Even if the Council never forgives me for calling you, I would make the same choice again. We will win tomorrow, Hyunwoo said with absolute certainty. The Krethiks are machines. They follow programs. They are predictable. Humans are not predictable. We are creative, adaptable, and when we protect something we care about, we are unstoppable. Your people are under our protection now. The Krethiks will learn what that means. Below them, Valian Prime rotated slowly in space. On its surface, billions of Velians waited to see if the Deathworlders could save them. In orbit, 200 human ships prepared for battle, and across the void, 4,000 Krethix warships raced toward what they thought would be another easy conquest. They were about to discover they were very, very wrong. The Krethix swarm dropped out of faster-than-light travel at exactly 0600 hours, just as the human tactical computers had predicted. 4,000 warships materialized in space like a spreading black stain. They moved in perfect formation, each ship exactly where it needed to be for maximum efficiency. In the command center of Sanctuary Station, Tilrex watched the display with 3 of his 4 hearts hammering in his chest. He had seen Krethix fleets before, but never one this large. The swarm that had destroyed the Valian colonies had been perhaps 1,000 ships. This was 4 times that size. The Krethix were not taking chances. They intended to overwhelm any defense, to crush any resistance, to eliminate the Valians completely. The human fleet waited in orbit around Valian Prime. 200 ships against 4,000. The mathematics were terrible. Every human ship would need to destroy 20 Krethix vessels to achieve victory, and the Krethix had never lost. Tilrex opened a communication channel to Admiral Bora's flagship. "Admiral, perhaps we should evacuate. This fleet is too large." Bora's hologram appeared and she was smiling. It was not a friendly smile. It was the smile of a predator that had just spotted prey. "Ambassador, you are about to see something that the Galactic Council fears," she said. "You are about to see what happens when humans decide something is worth protecting. All ships, this is Admiral Kang, weapons free. Show them what a Deathworld builds." The human fleet did not wait for the Krethix to attack. The moment Bora gave the order, they accelerated forward at speeds that made the Valian sensors scream warnings. The ships moved so fast that they created visible distortions in space. "They are charging directly into the swarm," a Valian tactical officer shouted in panic. "That is suicide." But it was not suicide. It was exactly what the humans had planned. The Krethix had programmed responses for every known military tactic. They expected enemies to maintain distance, to use long-range weapons, to fight cautiously. They did not expect anyone to charge straight at them like predators running down prey. When the human fleet reached weapon range, space lit up like a star had been born. The humans opened fire with everything they had. Missiles that traveled at speeds the Valians had thought impossible. Energy weapons that burned through Krethix armor like paper, and something called kinetic kill weapons that were simply chunks of metal, accelerated to 30% of light speed. When a kinetic weapon hit a Krethix ship, the target did not just explode. It simply ceased to exist, torn apart by the incredible energy of impact. In the first 30 seconds, the humans destroyed 300 Krethix ships. Tilrex stared at the display, unable to believe what he was seeing. 300 ships gone just like that. The Krethix swarm that had terrorized the galaxy for years was being torn apart like it was made of paper. "How?" he whispered. "How is this possible?" "They do not fight like civilized species." Tactical Officer Gina Park's voice came through the communication system. She was on the human flagship coordinating the attack. "We fight like predators. Fast, aggressive, overwhelming. The Krethix computers cannot adapt quickly enough." The Krethix swarm began to respond. They reformed their fleet, spreading out to avoid concentrated fire. They increased their speed and began targeting the human ships with their own weapons. Black energy beams lanced through space, striking human shields, but the human shields held. And even when they failed, the armor beneath absorbed damage that would have destroyed any Valian ship. "All fighters launch," Admiral Bora commanded. "Pilots, you are cleared to engage." The human fighter craft poured out of their carrier ships like angry insects. Each one was tiny compared to the Krethix warships, but they moved with an agility that seemed to defy physics. They twisted and turned through space at accelerations that would kill most species. Pilot Minho Quan led his squadron directly into the thickest part of the Krethix formation. His voice came through the communication channel, calm and professional despite flying at speeds that would terrify anyone else. "Dragon Squadron, break by pairs. Nari, take the left flank." "Confirmed," Nari Song replied. Her fighter spun through a gap between 2 Krethix ships that seemed impossibly small. As she passed through, she launched missiles that struck both ships from behind, exactly where their armor was weakest. Minho's targeting computer identified 12 Krethix ships in his immediate area. He destroyed 3 of them in the next 10 seconds. His movements were perfect, each roll and turn calculated to avoid enemy fire while putting his own weapons on target. He made it look easy. It was not easy. It was the result of years of training in Earth's brutal gravity. learning to fly under conditions that would crush most species. But to Minho, this was just what he did. The battle raged for hours. The Krethiks kept trying to adapt, kept trying to find a pattern they could exploit. Their artificial intelligence was sophisticated, capable of learning from each engagement. But the humans did not follow patterns. Each pilot flew differently. Each captain made unique decisions. The humans were creative in ways that no machine could predict. On the human flagship, Gina Park watched the tactical displays with satisfaction. The Krethiks were doing exactly what she had predicted they would do. They were learning the human attack patterns, adapting to them, becoming more efficient in their responses. They are adapting faster than expected, one of her officers noted. Good, Gina said, and her smile was cold. That means they will understand what comes next. She activated a system that Engineer Taewon had been secretly installing in the human weapons. Every missile the humans had fired, every torpedo that had struck a Krethik ship had carried a special payload. Nanoswarms. Millions of microscopic machines, all programmed with one purpose. The nanoswarms had spread through the Krethiks' fleet like an invisible virus. The Krethiks, with their networked intelligence, had not noticed. They were too busy fighting the visible threat to detect the invisible one. Activate the swarms, Gina commanded. Across the battlefield, the nanoswarms came to life. They did not destroy the Krethiks' ships. Instead, they infected their computer systems, introducing errors into their calculations, corrupting their shared intelligence network, turning their own coordination against them. Krethiks' ships began firing on each other. Their formation fell apart as ships received contradictory orders. The mechanical perfection that had made them so dangerous became their weakness as the nanoswarms turned their network into chaos. All ships press the attack, Admiral Bora ordered. The swarm is broken. Finish it. The human fleet surged forward. The Krethiks tried to retreat, tried to reorganize, but it was too late. They were no longer fighting as a coordinated swarm. They were individual ships, confused and vulnerable, facing an enemy that had been designed by evolution to exploit weakness. The remaining Krethik ships attempted to jump to faster-than-light speed and escape. But Commander Hyunwoo Nam had anticipated this. His heavy cruiser squadron had moved into position behind the Krethiks' fleet during the chaos of battle, cutting off their escape route. This is Commander Nam to all Krethiks vessels, Hyunwoo broadcasted on all frequencies. You came here to destroy this world. You chose to be an existential threat. We do not allow existential threats to escape. This is a lesson from Earth. If you try to make us extinct, we make you extinct first. The human fleet closed in from all sides. The Krethiks, for the first time in their existence, felt something that might have been fear, if they were capable of emotion. They faced beings that fought with a savagery they could not match, a creativity they could not predict, and a determination they could not break. The battle ended 4 hours after it began. 4,000 Krethik ships had entered the system, none left. The debris field spread across space like a graveyard of machines that had finally met something they could not defeat. In the command center, Tilrex stood in silence. Around him, Velian officers cheered and cried with relief. Their homeworld was saved. The Krethik swarm that had seemed unstoppable had been completely destroyed. Admiral Bora, Tilrex said through the communication system, I do not have words to thank you. You already thanked us, Bora replied. You trusted us to help when no one else would. That is all the thanks we need. Tilrex looked at the human ships on his display. These Deathworlders, these beings that the galaxy feared, had just saved his entire civilization, and they acted like it was nothing special. Perhaps that was the most frightening thing about humans. To them, risking everything to save strangers was simply what decent beings did. 3 days after the battle, Tilrex stood in the observation deck of Sanctuary Station and watched the human fleet begin their cleanup operations. The debris field from 4,000 destroyed Krethik ships spread across space like a dark cloud. Human salvage ships moved through the wreckage, making sure no Krethik systems remained active that could rebuild themselves. The humans were thorough. They did not just win battles. They made sure the enemy could never return. Below, on Velian Prime, celebrations continued. The cities were lit up in colors of joy, but Tilrex felt a chill that had nothing to do with the station's temperature. He had watched the battle recordings multiple times. Each viewing made him understand more clearly what the humans truly were. The Krethiks had destroyed 47 civilizations. They had been considered unstoppable for 300 years. The humans had annihilated them in 4 hours with minimal losses. Only 6 human ships had been destroyed, and even those crews had mostly survived thanks to their advanced escape systems. The efficiency was terrifying. The humans had not just won. They had achieved total and complete victory with an ease that suggested they were holding back. What would have happened if they had used their full strength? "Ambassador Tilrex," a voice said behind him. He turned to see Admiral Bora Kang. She had come to the station personally for the first time since the battle. "Admiral," Tilrex greeted her, "I was just reviewing the battle data." "And what do you think?" Bora asked, joining him at the observation window. "I think my people are very fortunate that you chose to help us rather than conquer us," Tilrex said honestly. "I think the Galactic Council was right to fear humans, and I think they were also wrong." "Explain," Bora said, her expression neutral. "You are dangerous," Tilrex continued, "more dangerous than any species I have ever encountered. Your weapons, your tactics, your entire civilization is built around surviving and winning conflicts, but you are also honorable. You came when we called. You fought for us like we were your own people. The Council fears your power but does not understand your character. The Council will need to make a decision soon," Bora said. "Our quarantine status cannot continue now that we have left our system. They will either accept us into the galactic community or try to force us back. What will you do if they try to force you back?" Bora was quiet for a long moment. "We will not be caged again. Earth's quarantine was imposed without our agreement. We accepted it because we were new to space and thought we should respect the Council's wishes. But we have proven we can coexist with other species. We have proven we can help rather than harm. If the Council cannot see that, then we will form our own alliances." "Starting with the Velian Empire," Tilrex said. "It was not a question." "If you will have us," Bora replied. "After what you did for us, the Velian people would follow humans into the heart of a star if you asked." Halfway across the galaxy, the Galactic Council convened an emergency session. The chamber was filled with representatives from 200 species, all arguing about what to do about the human situation. Councillor Vexus, his crystalline form glowing with agitation, called for order. "We must address this immediately. The humans have left their quarantine zone. They have demonstrated military capabilities that far exceed our projections. And they have formed an alliance with the Velian Empire without Council approval. They saved the Velians from extinction," another councillor pointed out, "something we refuse to do." "That is not the point," Vexus argued. "The point is that we now have a species in our galaxy that can destroy any of us. The Krethic swarm was considered a major threat. The humans eliminated it in hours. What does that say about the balance of power? It says we should be grateful they are on our side." Ambassador Tilrex's hologram appeared in the chamber. He had been granted special permission to address the Council. "Councillors, I have spent the past week with the humans. I have seen their military capabilities, yes, but I have also seen their character. They did not ask for payment. They did not demand territory. They simply helped because we asked. They are Deathworlders," Vexus said. "Their nature is violence. They cannot be trusted to remain peaceful." "Their nature is survival," Tilrex corrected, "and part of survival is cooperation. Earth is not the paradise world that most of your species evolved on. It is harsh and dangerous. Humans learned that working together, protecting each other, is what keeps them alive. That instinct extends beyond their own species." "Pretty words," Vexus replied. "But words do not change the fact that humans are the most dangerous species we have encountered." "Then perhaps," another councillor said quietly, "we should make sure they remain our friends rather than becoming our enemies." The debate continued for hours. Some councillors wanted to reinstate the quarantine by force. Others wanted to welcome humanity with restrictions. A few suggested forming a military alliance to use human strength for galactic defense. In the end, they reached a compromise. Humanity's quarantine would be lifted. They would be allowed to travel and trade freely. But they would need to register all military vessels and agree to limits on their expansion rate. The Council believed this would contain the threat while avoiding direct conflict. When the decision was transmitted to Earth, the human government's response was simple. "We accept your terms for now, but understand that we are an independent species. We will follow your laws when they are just, and we will forge our own path when they are not." The Council did not know how to respond to that. They were used to species that asked permission. Humans simply stated what they would do and left others to deal with it. Back on Sanctuary Station, Tilrex met with Admiral Bora one final time before the human fleet departed. "The Council has made its decision," he told her. "You are free to travel the galaxy, but they will be watching you." "Let them watch," Bora said. "We have nothing to hide. We came here to help, and we did. We will do the same for any species that asks. Even if the Council forbids it?" "The Council does not control us," Bora replied firmly. "We respect their authority in their territory, but we follow our own conscience. If someone calls for help and we can provide it, we will. That is not negotiable." Tilrex felt that same chill again. The humans were not being defiant for the sake of defiance. They simply had their own code of behavior, and nothing would make them abandon it. Not threats, not politics, not fear. "The Velian Empire would like to propose a formal alliance," Tilrex said. "Trade, cultural exchange, and mutual defense. We want to be your partners, not your subjects." "We would be honored," Bora said, extending her hand. Tilrex took it. The human greeting that he now understood meant more than just politeness. It meant trust. Over the next few weeks, other species began to reach out to humanity. Small systems that the Council had ignored, colony worlds on the frontier, research stations that wanted access to human technology. They did not fear the Deathworlders. They saw protectors. Within a year, 12 systems had joined what they called the Deathworld Accord, though the humans preferred to call it the Alliance of Free Worlds. It was not an empire. It was not a conquest. It was simply a group of species that had decided they would rather stand together than stand alone. And at the center of it all were the humans, the species from Earth. The Deathworlders who had answered a desperate call and changed the galaxy forever. The Galactic Council watched this alliance grow with increasing concern. They had kept humanity isolated because they feared what would happen if Deathworlders entered civilized space. Now they were learning that their fears had been both justified and completely wrong. Humans were dangerous, but they were dangerous to the right things. They were predators, yes, but they were predators that chose to protect the weak rather than prey upon them. They were evolved for violence, but they used that violence only against those who threatened innocence. The galaxy had a new reality to adjust to. There were beings among them who could destroy civilizations but chose to save them instead. There were warriors who fought not for conquest but for protection. There were Deathworlders who proved that strength and compassion were not opposites. And for species like the Velians, who had called desperately into the void and received an answer, this new reality was not frightening, it was hope.